ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you?
It's time to flip a coin and find out.
Well, we need to know what we're calling it for here.
We're calling it to see who's got the best sports knowledge here on the Coin Flip with Martin Kelly
and Jacob Zimmerman.
Flip it again.
Ha! 6 months ago, three knuckleheads thought they knew a thing or two about the National Football League when it came to how each of these teams were going to do, all 32 of them, in the regular season and how they were going to do against their over-under win total spread. Well, we are going to revisit that now in February of 2024, a day after the Super Bowl. Martin has done a hardworking, minimum wage job of combining all the teams, getting some overall records on how we did, and most importantly, sorting them all out by division in each team. So Martino, shout out to you for that. James is of course back here on the Coin Flip podcast. But fellas, I wanted to start this thing off, of course, by talking about the Super Bowl. And let's kind of go around here, us three, and we're gonna name our biggest takeaway from the Super Bowl. It can be it can be something within the game. It can be a player. It can be something much bigger. It can be, some straight hate like we might get, from James here. So, we're going to go into this. Martin, I want you to start off just very briefly. Give me a quick sentence or two on the Super Bowl.
Well, I won't waste any time on this one. My quick top of my head reaction is Kyle Shanahan ain't it. He's not the elite head coach he believes he is. He's not the elite person in the NFC he believes to be. He's a great offensive mind. He can create a play, but this dude ain't it. 3 Super Bowls, 3 leads, 2 as a head coach, 1 as an offensive coordinator, and he loses not only to the true GOAT of the sport, but he loses to the new GOAT of the sport, and I think that's a bit of a soul-crushing thing for him. Kyle Shanahan ain't it. He's not his dad. And unfortunately, he'll be a Super Bowl loser, just like Mark Levy and a couple other coaches that lost a lot of those.
James.
A lot of people are talking about now that Mahomes has won 3. He's up there in the conversation with the great ones, Montana, Bradshaw, Brady. And meanwhile, he did have a great game. He had a 99 quarterback rating, and that's great, but I really do think that we have to give Steve Spagnuolo and this defense a lot of credit. The adjustments that they made in the second half are ultimately the reason why the Chiefs were able to stay in this game. Multiple times deep inside of the Chiefs' territory, the Niners had to settle for field goals. On that stage, in that game, you can't afford to do something like that. So the Niners, once again, 4 years ago, it was Garoppolo. If he made that one throw, they might win that game. Well, now it's, if we didn't settle for field goals, we might have won this game. So you got to tip your hat off to KC's defense. They really needed to step up in this game because the whole question this year was Kansas City's offense. And so Kansas City's defense finally came through for Patrick Mahomes when he needed to most. So that's what it came down to, was the defense.
I like the takeaways from both of you guys. I like them. Martin, you went with the typical kind of Martin response, the Martino response of calling out either one of the coaches or one of the main players and kind of fraud checking them. And you did exactly that with Kyle Shanahan. Now, I think he's still a top 5 coach. But it's an interesting takeaway. I think within the game itself, you could definitely make the argument that he did not live up to expectation. As far as James, I'm surprised you didn't find a way to finagle Tom Brady's name in there, but nevertheless, you credited the defense, which is classic for you to focus on the defense. So we're starting off with a nice classic start here on the Coin Flip podcast. I'm going to go with the easy one. Probably the most talked about one, since you guys hit on some details. It's going to be Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce, I think, being the number 1 quarterback to position offensive player pairing that we may have ever seen in the postseason, at least their peak. Kelsey's numbers, the fact that they're even rivaling a guy like Rice. I mean, Jerry Rice. The numbers he's putting up in the regular season, we know that. The postseason is what it is. Kelsey has a shot to actually beat him in, all three main categories. So that and the combination of, Patrick Mahomes really doing what he did with the legs. He had 66 yards on the ground himself, scrambling in the clutch when they needed it most, off tackle to the right, up the gut, first down after first down. So Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce was my biggest takeaway from the Super Bowl. All right, so without further ado, let's get into our over-under throughout the season on every team in the regular season. Martin, you and I, it's almost as if our predictions we did all through season for every single game helped us, even though we did this before we did all that. So Martin, we and you go 17-15, going over 500. And James, I thought you knew the NFL like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
Every year that me and Martin have known you, you've been the NFL guy. You've been the staple. And I've been more the NBA guy. Well, partner, times may have changed. What's your reaction?
I'm shocked. I look back on some of these and I'm like, what was I thinking? But then, it almost just seems like it all comes back together in the end. So, for next season, it's just going to have to be looking into in between the lines a lot more than I did this last year. So,
well, let's go to the top of things. Let's start off in the AFC East. Martin, you have arranged this in quite some order, but I'm going to try to fathom what's going on here. So the Bills, we all nailed it with going over 10.5.
Yes.
The Dolphins, Martin, you were on point with that.
Yes, I was.
The Patriots, that was me and you, Martino, and then we all got the
Jets incorrect. All right, let me explain here. I'll take over here, Jacob. Not to say you're not doing a great job. I know I made this seem complicated. The point is we did the AFC East. I went 3-1. James went 1-3. Jacob, you went 2-2. The one we all whiffed on was the New York Jets. We all lost on that one just because Aaron Rodgers' Achilles decided to break after one play in the NFL.
I feel like we should all get a tie for that. We should get a tie. All of us get a tie on that. That should have been a voided bet as soon as Aaron Rodgers went down. Let's be real.
It gets worse. So we move on to the NFC North. Jacob got that one right only because Joe Burrow's hand decided to break. I got the Browns right. I got a lucky one on that one just because Joe Flacco saved that pick. We all missed on the Ravens. That's a shameful one considering they won 14 games. And then the Steelers, me and James got that right. Jacob, you betted on the fact that Mike Tomlin would end his hot streak of staying above 500. In that division, I went 2-2. Jacob, you went 1-3. James, you went 1-3.
All right, so thank you, Martin. We'll have that be the format going forward. You'll run through them. But what's sticking out to me, that Bengals injury, for sure. With the Steelers, yeah, it was only a matter of time, right? But no, didn't happen. Steelers found a way. They found a way right when you thought they weren't going to do it. So, but it seems their franchise is just miserable and, can't accept being a double-digit win team or a 9-win team when a lot of other franchises would absolutely kill for it.
It would. All right, for AFC West, we all got the Chiefs right over 11.5. Me and James decided to go over on the Chargers. I think that's more of a icky pick than James picking the Panthers over. I don't know what I was thinking on that one. Me and Jacob got the Broncos right at 8.5, and then we all got the Raiders wrong on that one. James went 1-3 again. Jacob, you went 3-1, and then I went 2-2. Wrap up the AFC before we move on to the NFC. James, this was your best one. We all got the Jags wrong just because Trevor Lawrence's shoulders and mine decided to bust at the end of the season. Jacob and James, you got the Titans right. I thought Mike Vrabel would have a bounce back season. We all got the Texans wrong because who saw that coming? And James, you were the only one that got the Colts right because you weren't having so many high expectations on that one and paid off. So I went 0-4 in that division. Jacob, you went 1-3, and James, you went 2-2. At this point, me and Jacob are 7-9, and James, you're 5-11.
Oof.
So James, you got your Colts pick correct.
Yeah, the Colts pick, I was confident. I mean, with Anthony Richardson, it looked good for the partial games that he actually got to play in. But Gardner Minshew, I think, solidified himself as today's Nick Foles. Really, like he's the best backup quarterback in the league.
What?
Who right now in the league? He won more games as a backup quarterback this season than any other quarterback did. You could look that up. He won 9 games, right? That is more than any other backup can say they did. So he is by far, and he didn't turn the ball over nearly as much as Anthony Richardson did per time on the field, right? Let's just put that out there. But 9 wins for them, they really should have gotten 10. But I won't talk about that Cleveland game. But for next season, let me just warn you guys: this number will be higher. It's not going to be 6.5. My guess it's going to be 8.5. And take the over on that, guys. I'm telling you, good things are coming.
I agree.
I don't know.
To jump on that. Sorry, Jacob. Just jump on that. I agree. Only because AR-15 showed what he could do in those couple games. I will admit it was exciting to watch. James, I gotta agree with you. Gardner just doesn't put the ball in bad situations, and he's a really smart quarterback. And I guess you mentioned the Browns game, but that was also something that the Colts were lucky about. They were really lucky in a lot of one-score games that went their way. Gardner Minshew bagged enough magic in that bag to come out with some lucky wins. The win on the road against the Titans, the win on the road. I believe there was a win against the Panthers. Like they
Don't
won a
forget a
decent
win
amount of road
against
games. They probably
Baltimore.
shouldn't have won.
Don't forget that one too.
So
Gardner Minshew did beat Lamar Jackson. Let's not forget that.
And that is correct too.
Well, he didn't win a Super Bowl like Nick Foles did, so he's not the Nick Foles. Martin, continue on with the over-unders.
All right, let's move on to the NFC. All right, so Eagles, we all went that one. Me and Jacob got that one right with 11.5. James, you just sat right under 11, so if you went over, you would have got that one right. Me and James got the Cowboys right. Jacob, I agree with your assessment. If we go back to that podcast, it was a good one, but just it didn't come up the way you wanted it. Me and Jacob had the Giants, right? That's not a bad pick, James, because the Giants did show they could probably win some games, but they just didn't. And we all bet on Washington sucking, so we all got to that point. I went undefeated in there. James, you went 2-2. Jacob, you went 3-1. NFC West.
Martin,
Wait, can
in the
I
NFC East,
can I just put a little asterisk next to my Cowboy pick because I did say, and everyone thought I was crazy. I said the Cowboys are going to win the East this year, and everybody laughed at me. And I just want to say that was on record, and I stood by it all year long, even when the Cowboys were ruled out. So even when the Eagles were 10-1, I was still saying the Cowboys are going to win the division.
Yeah,
And
but
they
I totally
up
called them losing in the first round or whatever.
and that's fine. But I said they were going to win the division. That's all I cared about.
All right, to the NFC West. So the 49ers, Jacob and James got that one right. I bet on the under because I thought Brock Purdy would not be the same. I was wrong. You guys went under with the Seahawks. I went over. They won 9 games, so they went over the 8.5. So that was just enough to get it. Jacob, you went right on the Rams at 6.5. And we all picked the Cardinals to suck. We all got that right. And then the NFC South.
Puka, man, Puka and Stafford. How about him?
It was crazy. I gotta
Completely
admit,
forgot.
who would ever saw it? Who would ever thought that? Like let's take this for a minute here, Jacob. While we put this on podcast, the last time you and I talked about this, we didn't put it on a podcast. But legitimately, could you have ever seen this if you were lining up against Puka in high school that you would have broke that record?
Yes, he was that good, bro. The year after I left, he had 3 touchdowns and like 300 yards against Bishop Gorman.
That's a good school. I gotta admit that you're right about that one. What year was that?
2018 fall.
Okay. All right. All right. All right. Let's move on to the NFC South here. Jacob, you got the Saints right on that one. They sat at 9 games. We all got the Falcons right. They sat under. The Bucks, they went over. They won 9 games. We got that one wrong. And Jacob, I give you the credit. We all picked over for all of our favorite teams, so that wasn't a surprise. I picked under for the Panthers. We're not going to gloss over this that quickly. James, what were you drinking or doing that day that had you think Bryce Young was going to win more than 7.5 games?
I think I woke up feeling like Jacob Zimmerman over there. I felt maybe I just had too much confidence in Frank Reich. And maybe it was the additions of Miles Sanders, who went absolutely missing this season for them. And I thought Adam Thielen would have kept up the production that he had for the first 4 weeks for 17 weeks, but he failed to do so. But, man, I don't think anybody could predict how bad the offensive line was, right? I don't think it's ever fair to ever predict an offensive line to give up 60 plus sacks this season. I mean, that's just disrespectful. So you can't ever, account for something like that. So it's always hard, but man, I don't know what this number is going to be next season, but I'd probably put my finger around 5.5, but I was wrong. And maybe I was listening to Jacob too much about this one.
Bro, I gave him that salesman talk, bro. I talked you right into that. The offensive line just. Oh, that was a revolving door back there for Bryce Young. And my oh my, Bryce Young had a horrendous first half to that season. I mean, he finished it off with a 300 yard game against the Packers, but yikes. We all missed on the Bucks. Baker.
Definitely.
Yeah, Baker definitely deserves a lot of credit for that.
Falcons, we all saw coming. I will admit, I gotta to back up me and James on the Saints. I think we picked the Saints just because of Derek Carr. Maybe we thought, Dennis
Derek
Allen, a
Carr
new
is
area,
gone.
new environment, like something new would have like sparked inside of him. And unfortunately, I don't know. Like I just don't think Derek Carr is the type of guy to ever get over double-digit wins anymore. I think he's more like Andy Dalton at this point in his career. He's just gonna have fun and try to survive the rest of his career. All right, since I'll take the silence as we'll just move on, let's move on. All right, so we'll move on to the division that everyone likes to laugh at me about, and rightfully so. Me and James got the Vikings right at 8 and under 8.5. Jacob, I'll give you credit for it. It was a thought. It would have been a promising one if Kirk Cousins' knee didn't decide to go and exit out the season. We all got the Lions right. That was a good one. We all got the Packers wrong, and of course, everyone laughed at me about the Bears being over. What was I thinking? Well, I don't know, because I went on a rant for about 10 minutes on that podcast too. I'm going to make a correction. James, you have 13 wins. It's 13 and 19. I apologize. You had a 3-1 record in this division. I forgot to add. I apologize. But me and Jacob both went 17 and 15. James 13 and 19. Not too terrible, I guess, but
Not the worst,
from, I'll back up myself here on this one. To go from 10 to 17 wins in a season, I guess I'd study a little bit more. Maybe I just, I don't know, heard more or something like that. Maybe I just actually paid attention this time, but I don't know, +7 in win margin is a good stat for me.
Wait. What do you mean plus 10?
No, plus
He had
7.
10
Sorry, I
wins
meant
last year, and now he's got 17.
Wait. You got the numbers from last year, Martin? When we did this last year?
no.
No, he
We did
went.
this.
Yeah, I have that
Yeah,
list right here.
yeah, we did this last year. I got 10 wins last year.
And how many did I get again?
You had 16. I had 15.
So James
Okay.
lost 3. I won 7, and then Jago win plus 1.
So I'm what, like one game over 500 over the last 2 years? Let's go.
Yep,
Or one team over 500.
one team over 500. But that is how the season went for us boys. Season's over. The Kansas City Chiefs, back-to-back champs. Let's talk about this a little more. I know we just talked about it for short, but let's talk about just them being back-to-back champs. It's the first time in 20 years. Obviously, a man that James hates with nothing but pure rage, and I don't blame him. It's his opinion, but Tom Brady and New England Patriots were the last ones to do it. Now we have Patrick Mahomes, 3 titles, back-to-back, the new back-to-back champs. What do we think about that, boys?
You can go first, Jacob.
Uh, it's the first of my conscious lifetime, I would say. Patrick Mahomes, I think, I made the point today when talking about this on radio. I would take this version of Mahomes over any other quarterback at their best season from like start to finish. Because I think
Wow.
this run for Mahomes kind of reminds me of some of the carry jobs I've seen LeBron do.
That's
So
a great
I think
comparison.
if I'm seeing anybody in any sports world do something like that, they're on track. Mahomes is just a little bit too young at this point to get that nod for me, but I think if he wins 2 more, however long that would take, I think 2 more is probably the answer, or at least 1 more and just continuing these dominant stats. I mean, his postseason averages are insane. So, yeah, I mean, back to back for the Chiefs. Andy Reid, Travis Kelce. I hope they survive the offseason and they stick around for more Chiefs content for us to bring you.
James?
I love this. I love this because now, just like how Jordan fans get scared when LeBron fans start talking, Brady fans are now starting to get scared because Mahomes fans are coming. And I love it, and I'm here for it. So, because it takes a little bit of pressure off of me a little bit, because everyone out there knows how against Mr. Brady I am, and now someone here is not only doing what Tom did at this stage in his career, but he's doing it better than Tom did. And I have the numbers to prove it. I'm not going to go through them, but if you go through the performances, Mahomes has had better performances against better teams, respectively, to each season. So, what he's doing is unbelievable, and I just hope that he stays healthy because we've seen all these legendary quarterbacks. There's at least one season that they miss. Brady missed one season. Peyton missed one season. You can even say Aaron Rodgers missed, a total of over one season. Now, if you even include the Jets, I'm not saying that it's going to happen, but it does tend to happen to these high-profile quarterbacks. Just let's hope and pray that it doesn't happen to Mahomes as well. So if he could keep going at this pace, I don't see why he shouldn't be able to be thrown in that conversation already. So, it's truly it's mind blowing to see what he's been able to do in his first 6 years in the league. It almost seems like it's a Madden career at this point. I mean, we've all done it. We've all gone to the playoffs every year and gone to the Super Bowl every year. I mean, it has that feeling, right? And I don't know if you guys were listening to the post game, but Travis Kelce said, "We'll see you next year." So they definitely want that three-peat. And it kind of gives a last dance vibe because Travis Kelce is contemplating retirement. Andy Reid is contemplating retirement. Chris Jones is contemplating retirement, and his deal expires this year. I mean, they're going to try everything that they can to get a 1-year cheap deal for Chris Jones because they really, really want to get that three-peat. So I'm not saying it's going to be as easy as it sounds because everybody's going to be giving him their best shot week in and week out, but you can almost guarantee that the Kansas City Chiefs will be in the Final Four, if not the Super Bowl again next year, just because I know that there's so much at stake. And to be able to say that, hey, we're the first team ever to do a three-peat, that would be something.
And just like that, breaking news, Patrick Mahomes has torn his ACL. He's out for the 2025 season. Knowing your luck, James.
Okay.
Uh,
I'll wrap it up here. Just with this thought, James, you brought it up with the Jordan and LeBron James conversation. Me and Jacob went at each other about a week and a half ago with that, and it was a pretty fun conversation. I'm not gonna lie, it got heated, but it was a fun conversation and a fun way to look at it, someone else's perspective and how they think of a player. But the way we've watched all these legend quarterbacks, Brady, Manning, Mahomes now, this has to feel like what our dads felt like watching, Montana and Young and Aikman and Elway. I mean, in those 80s and 90s, like, this is much of what it felt like to watch the great quarterbacks just literally dismantle the
I
entire
disagree.
league. Hold on, but my point is like, they saw a great quarterback after great quarterback after great quarterback come in and just literally just own the league. And Patrick Mahomes has done that. And of course he has all of the players in the league doing it too. Josh Allen, Tua, Lamar and all that. But we all know Patrick stands at the top. We all know he's the king right now. We all know he's taking the mantle and the throne, and he's the one you have to knock off. Right? You're not knocking off Lamar Jackson from MVP. You're knocking off Patrick Mahomes from a Super Bowl. Like, that's the goal. So I think back on it is this must have what it felt like what our dads watching those legend quarterbacks. Maybe people disagree. Jacob, you got a point there. Maybe you got a point. But my point is, this must have been what it felt like because this is really freaking cool. Like, I don't think we're gonna see this for a while, and if we do see it again, I'll enjoy it because this is one heck of a ride. Let's see if he gets 4. Let's see if he gets 5. Let's see if he gets 8. Could he beat Tom Brady for a total amount? That'd be freaking cool to see. So, go ahead, Jacob.
Well, and this is kind of off topic at this point, but I think back in the day, it wasn't about the quarterbacks. It was about the running backs. So I agree with kind of half of what you said. I just think it wasn't about the quarterbacks. It was about the running backs. Now it's about the quarterbacks. So,
Okay, I like
yeah,
that.
I think that's
All right,
that can be my closing statement for this podcast.
go ahead.
Well, Martin, you want to go ahead and do the outro? James,
You do it, dude. Jacob, you got it.
all right. That's James scrubbing it up this year, but ending well for him, I guess, in terms of his Brady
that's all right.
hatred.
We'll run it back for March Madness.
Yes,
We'll run it
that'd be
back for
fun.
March Madness.
I like that.
Because I did pick the winner last year. I did pick UConn before the tournament started. So I'm going to try and make it 2 years in a row and see if I can get that going.
We'll definitely run this back and do the picks and over-unders again. That for sure.
Indeed. It's the Coin Flip Podcast. March Madness. Best bracket. Coming soon.
Peace.